Hi, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to our office hour today. It's supposed to be interactive in that we all get to talk, right? If you have questions, we get to answer them in real time and just run through all that you're supposed to go through today. I mean, this week, not today, all that you're supposed to go through this week. If you have some extra challenges that you'd like us to go through together, this session is supposed to be for that. So hoping that others get to join. In the meantime, I'm just going to cover some other things that I did mention in the last class that I was going to go through, like navigations and imports. Yeah, I was supposed to go through that together today. So I'm just going to prep my VS Code to share. By the way, those on the call, how are you all doing? Anybody can unmute and talk. Nobody.
Good morning.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Thanks
What was the
for
question again?
I just asked how you all are.
Oh, it's been an adventure.
Hope it has been a good one.
No, I can't actually. I don't know, my emulator just keeps messing up and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
So what are you talking about?
My emulator.
What happened to your emulator?
Hmm?
So what's wrong with your emulator?
It keeps showing me a message about daemon. Daemon is missing or something like that. I don't know what it means.
Daemon is missing. That's a weird error. Could you maybe share a screenshot on Slack?
Okay, I'm coming.
All right. In the meantime, while she's doing that, let me share my screen so we can just go through a couple of other things. Oh, you're sharing. That's a very that's a very weird error. But I could actually do a quick Google search, but maybe just give it a hang on. So we'd go through all that. We'll just go through some very basic topics and then we can see how far I can go with your error. Is that fine?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so this is pretty much where we stopped in the last class, in the last session, actually. We want to, today we're just going to cover navigations, imports, assets, and yeah, we could, while talking about assets, we could just talk about images as well. Okay. Let's take out this class here. And let's just name this main app, make it a stateless widgets. I did mention that there are shortcuts that come with the Flutter extension on VS Code or Android Studio. It comes with certain shortcuts that you can use to, write your code faster. Instead of having to write all of this from scratch, you could just use STL, and then it gives you the different options that are available to you. Either you just auto create a stateful widget or stateless, or if you're using hooks, you could also do with stateful, hook consumer, and stateless and the likes. But yeah, that's a very easy shortcut to get to have this this written for you in no time, and then you just have to name your class and then fill out the body of your widget, right? So this is our main app, which from here we're going to access the first screen and then the second screen. Remember, we're talking about navigations. For imports, pretty much in that, if you want to have access to a certain library in your code base, you start out with the import keyword. Oops. Followed by where you're importing the file, the library from. In this case of, we don't have an extra file. Maybe when we create a new file, we'll just run through that. But this material.dot that we're using to create our material widgets can be found inside of the Flutter package. This already comes, this is inbuilt, right? It comes along with your Flutter app. Whenever you create a new Flutter app, you already have all the, oops, who's writing on my screen? You already have all the basic dependencies or the important dependencies that comes with Flutter already installed for you. So whenever you import or whenever you add a new dependency in your PubSpec YAML file, you'll be able to access it just the way we have, just the way we're accessing the material.dot file in the Flutter package. You can do the same for any package that you get to add within your project. But for now, we don't have an extra file, so we're not going to import anything. Here, what we want to do is to create the material app. I covered the essence of this in the last session. So if you don't understand what's going on here, which I expect everyone to, you could just watch the previous office hour, and this should be clear. Then inside of the material app, we have home. say we want to have the scaffold. And then the body of the scaffold, we want to use a safe area. Maybe a column. Just want to have a text widget inside of it that says this is the main screen. Structure being called isn't a class constructor. Okay, sorry. So I explained that error in the last session, in that at the time we did a hot reload, the state of the application was no longer in the same way that we launched it. When we launched the app, there was a button, there was a text, and we had a different class called practice app. And then now that we have made changes to our code, we were expected to do a hot restart so that our application would run from this point again and then rebuild the entire application. A hot reload just updates whatever changes that you make within your file. But a hot restart rebuilds your application from this point, the main method, and then just updates rebuilds every other file within your code base. So since we made that change, we had to carry out a hot restart, so our app would reload from top to the bottom. Okay, so this is okay, let's call this main screen, main app. So this is the main screen. Let's wrap this in the center. Why is it not going to the center? Let's see. Okay. Oh, please let me. Thank you. Okay. So where was I? We're centering our we aligned our widgets to the center. The same thing that I was explaining, I also made the mistake just now in that when you make changes, especially when you change a file name or when you make like really huge changes that are totally opposite of what the application already has in memory, you would need to carry out a hot restart to rebuild from the top to the end. We tried to say, I centered the column, but I wasn't seeing the changes because remember I changed this from the main app to main screen, and the changes that I was trying to see was not being affected because I already made that huge change and I had to carry out a hot restart. So just in case you run into that, just try a hot restart first. And if that doesn't solve your problem, you could just easily Google to find out what's going on, but always carry out a hot restart. Okay, so yeah, I want to just align this widget to the center, maybe change the color of text style. The font color, maybe change it to my go-to is always blue-gray, but let's change it to maybe teal. And then we could also change our scaffold background color to oh no, that one's too dark. No. Font size, let's increase this to 32. We're not doing design class, so please, nobody should mock my choice of colors, please. Thank you. Okay, so I think these two colors complements. I don't know. We're just going to leave it like that. So this is the main screen, and we want to also do the same for our sub screen. Oops. So let's just call this a subscreen. This is the subscreen. Maybe we'll change the color to black and have the text be white. Okay. Now, for us to be able to navigate, we need to at least have a button. So we'll just make use of which button widgets. Oh, you could choose to use either one of the buttons, the button widgets that are available to you in Flutter, or you could also just, make your button from scratch. Okay, maybe let's try that. Let's build a fresh button just to explore some other stuff in Flutter. First, we want to have a container. Give the container a height of, let's just do 24. Give it a width of 60. Then let's just give it a child that says go to separate screen or go to subscreen. Then we would want to quickly, let's just decorate the container. Give it a color of, oh, we're back to this color business. Colors dot, okay, let's change this to just maybe it's a white. Button. So let's increase this width to 120. Let's also increase the height to 30. Then we can add a padding. Oops. We had padding of all. Let's just give it 10. I'm going to explain all this in a bit. Let's just go through our widgets first. Our button is very ugly. Just go blue gray. And then let's change the text. And we could keep the gap between both by using a size box. Let's give it a height of 20. And let's reduce this. Okay, so let's explain what we have going on here. First, we already talked about the essence of a scaffold, safe area. What center does is obvious. It centers the widgets, the child widgets. Then the column aligns our widgets vertically. As you can see, whatever we add to this column is going to either come on top. If you add it here, it's going to go over this widget, or it will go under if you add the widget from the bottom. But it just aligns all your widgets vertically. Then, so we created the text widget, which is this one that says this is the main screen. So size box, excuse me, it's a widget that you could use to assign height and width values to, that you can add height and width values, and it also takes in a child property. So you could have a size box with certain height, and then you could fix in whatever widgets is applicable inside of the size box. We could also use it for spacing. If we want to give space, in this case, between two widgets, we could use a size box to carry that out. Before now, most people used to use a container, but a container is somewhat a heavy widget to use simply for the sake of spacing. Hence, it advises you to use a container. So say, for example, I switch this up to a container. Oh, it didn't give us the warning. That's weird. Okay. I think I saw that when we had just this. So yeah, it would give you a warning to use a size box instead of a container if you're just, using it for white space. White space in this case is this, where you have space between certain widgets within your app. So in such a case, we just use a size box to create spacing. And then we have the container here. The container has quite a number of properties inside of it. And we've just used the width, height, padding, decoration, alignment, and child. So just the way you have an alignment property for the column and the row, the container also has an alignment where you can align its child in whichever way you want within the container. In this case, we wanted the text widget to be in the center, hence why we aligned it to the center. The container also has a decoration property where you can pass in the color, you can add a radius, a box shadow gradient. You could even add an image as the background of your container. You could also change the shape if you want it to be circular. The container has all that decoration for you. Let's actually add a border radius instead of having a very, so we have border radius dot circular. Let's give it an 8. It says, okay, we assigned it a constant. It's not showing. Yeah, there we go. So border radius just, adds curve to the edges of the widgets, right? In this case of this container, we just made the edges, instead of being sharp, we added a bit of curve. Okay, so the container is also one of those widgets that accepts one child, and here we passed in the text as the child and then gave it value of go to subscreen. Now, right now, when we click on this, it does nothing. It looks like a button, but it's not exactly functioning as a button. Now, to make this interactive, we need to wrap this in a widget that accepts gesture, or accepts you to, when you tap on it, you can actually do something. So we could either use a gesture detector. Gesture detector has a couple of tap properties. When you double tap, if you double tap it, or when you hold on to the button. There are different properties that you could make use of. But in this case, we just want the untap property, in that when you tap on this button, when you tap on this widget, we're expected to carry out a certain action. Another thing you could use is an inkwell. An inkwell is also a widget that handles interactions as well. It accepts feedback from whatever action you're doing on that button, and you can use it for your navigation, to carry out a function or whichever. It also has an untap property. I think I don't know if it's as flexible as the gesture detector. Yeah, it also has some of the other taps, but not as flexible as the gesture detector. So you could make use of either of the two, or you could just use the buttons that are available to you in Flutter, right? So let's just use a gesture detector in this case, and yeah, we'll flesh out the function in a bit. Okay, so we have successfully created our own button, and we have somewhat styled it here. So what we want to do is, when we click on this button, we want to go to the subscreen. So here we're going to use the what's it called? Is it a material page route? I haven't used this in so long. I think this is it. Okay. The builder takes in a context. I've actually forgotten how to use this. I think next, hold on. Oh my, I totally forgot to zoom in. I am so sorry. Oh, I just checked the comments and saw someone mention it. I'm so sorry. I think it's clear now. Oh, okay. There we go. I missed out something. I knew it was looking weird. But yeah, we could still pass in our subscreen here. But I forgot to add the navigator. So we want to do navigator.push, which takes in the material page route that we just did, like so. Oh, the screen is so small. Okay. So yeah, when we click on this button now, we expect that it does nothing. Okay, let's restart. Then let's do that again. Why is it not moving? I already changed the text. Let's see, let's debug. So click. Navigator pressure and requested with a context that does not include a navigator. Oh my. Okay. Oh, it was actually showing error, but I did not. I wasn't looking at the console, so I didn't see it. Okay, so very quickly, what that place is telling us is, so for you to be able to navigate to different routes, actually totally forgot. Actually totally forgot. For you to be able to navigate in between different screens, you need to add those routes to your material app router. Where is it? So right here, I believe you would have yeah, you have route. Route takes in a string and a widget builder. Okay, so we have sub screen, and we want to assign sub screen to it. What's the oops, sorry, that's not how it's done. So think you would no, hold on. Okay, so it takes in the context and then the widgets like so. Yep, I think this is it. Takes in the context and then the widgets. So in the case where we have say, okay, where that is actually supposed to go in something like this. We're supposed to have a base widget like so that takes in a material app, then would pass in the routes in here. So usually this slash represents the first route, like the initial routes that we want to go to when we launch our app. Okay, so we can take out material app here. Just have this scaffold. Oops, this had a material app. It's not supposed to. There's supposed to be just one material app or Cupertino app inside of your code, except in very rare circumstances that you need multiple material apps. So if I were to restart this, so I put in the run app this widget called my app, but inside of the routes I placed that any widget that's assigned to this slash it typically represents your initial routes, like the first routes that your application hits whenever you launch it. Hence why it's taking us to the main screen. If I were to switch this to the sub screen and then make this the main screen, and I were to restart the app, our app is going to start from the sub screen and not the main screen, because this slash, like I said, simply means your initial route. Hence why it's starting from here instead. So let's just correct that. Now we have the main screen. And if I were to click on this, it should just take us to our sub screen, just like we intended before. But because we did not assign routes initially, we did not have the we didn't have access to the navigator because there are no registered routes in our material app. Hence, it's not recognized. If I were to create another screen and not pass it into the routes, it's going to throw the exact same error that it did before. There's also a package that helps to handle this very easily. It's called the auto routes. So this is what I mostly use. I have actually totally forgotten or almost forgot how to handle routes this way. But for the most, for like 100%, I use the auto routes to carry out my navigation. It makes everything a lot easier for you. You don't need to manually write all of this. It's auto generates the file that handles all that for you. So you could take a look at this package. You could explore it and see how you can use it within your app. Okay, so that said, we have the main screen, we have the sub screen. So our sub screen is too bland. We have the main screen and the sub screen. We want to be able to add a back button from this sub screen that takes us back to the main screen. So why is our scaffold not changing color? Isn't that weird? All the blacks are not the same. Let's see, let's try something else. Ew, that's very bright. Okay, so I guess all the blacks are the same. Okay, let's use blue gray. Okay, so for us to be able to navigate back, we need some other button or an arrow that takes us back to the main screen. So what we can do is we can use a widget called icon button. It has an on-press property where if we click on the widget, it can, carry out some function, right? So here we want to pass in an icon of arrow back, like so. I know. Then here, all we want to do is to use the navigator and pop. Pop simply means to go back to the screen that you're coming from. Here. So let's style that, shall we? We want our arrow to be right here and for our text to be here in the center. So what we can do is, what can we do? Okay. So we'll first take out this. And we want to align this icon button to the left. And yeah, we want to align that to the left. And then for this guy, how can we move it to the center? Using the center widget is not going to work because that is already being done, I believe. Yeah, that's already been handled by this center here. So this is not going to take any effect. How do we move it to the center? Totally cannot remember. So it means we're going to have to leave our widget like this. Or we'd add a spacer. Spacer is going to take our widget to the bottom. Then we could just pad it up with another spacer. It's not exactly in the middle, but we'll leave it there. This is not at the top. Thank you and God bless. So we are going to so this align widget is just as it's did now. It's aligns your widgets in whichever direction you want it to be aligned in. Here we wanted it to be aligned to the center left, hence why we have it here. We could just also increase the size of our icon so that it's more visible. So it's looking small still. like so, and we probably want to change the color to white, maybe. Our app is so ugly. Then we also want to give it a padding. It has a padding property, right? Yep. We want to give it a padding of, just want to pad the left bit and make it 24. Let's see more. Okay. So when we click this, it should take us to the main screen. When we do that, so we just have this interaction going on. Now, this ability to be able to pop is possible because we use the navigator push. Navigator push just stacks a widget over the over another. So we have this main screen. Pushing the subscreen to the main screen means we're just stacking the subscreen on the main screen in a sense. Yeah. So if we were to maybe change this to a push replacement, for example, push replacement replaces the current route of the navigator. It replaces this main screen in the navigator, let's say in the navigator stack. It replaces this main screen with whatever screen that you push on it. So if I were to go to subscreen, it's still going to navigate, but if I should go back, it's going to return a black screen because there is no screen to go back to. What do I mean? We have the main screen here as our initial route. This is the base of our application right now. Now, when we click on the navigator push replacement, we're pretty much saying we're replacing this our initial route, in this case, with the subscreen. Ideally, it just means you're replacing the route you're navigating from with the route you're navigating to. So when I click go to subscreen and I go back, there is no widgets to go back to, hence why you're seeing this black boring screen. So there are cases where you'd actually want to replace a route. Say, for example, you're trying to log into your application. You wouldn't want the user to be able to go back to the login screen once they have successfully logged in. So in that case, you could replace your login screen with maybe your home screen or your dashboard, whichever screen the user gets to navigate to. In that situation, you could actually use the push replacement so they will not be able to move back to the login screen. And there's also replace. Replace does the same thing with the push replacement. It replaces the routes that you're coming from, the route you're going to. But in this case, because we want to be able to go back, we'll just use a navigator push. So the auto route also has different navigations like this. It's pretty much the same flow. I'm just saying this in case you decide to try out the auto route. It also has the different kind of navigations that we have here. It has a push, it has a replace, it has the pop, whichever one suits your use case, the auto route handles that for you. So now we've changed it to push. We can just go back and forth the two screens. So this is just like a very basic overview of what of how navigation is done in the Flutter app. So to make our file cleaner, because now we have 112 lines of code, whereas we could just break it down to subscreens. So I could create a folder called screens and then create a file for the main screen and then another file for the subscreen. I'm just going to copy what we have here for the subscreen. Paste it here and do the same for the main screen. and paste it here. So it's throwing an error because at this point, the stateless widgets, the build context, all of these widgets are not recognized because we have not carried out an import. So for us to be able to access all of these widgets, we need to import the material library, and that would clear up all of our errors. And then here, we're getting this error because we haven't also imported the subscreen. To get the quick fix for some of your errors, if you're on Mac, just click on Command and full stop. And if you're on Windows, I think it is Control and full stop. So it gets to auto import the library that you're looking for. In this case, it is the subscreen. So this is in the widgets. Oops. Okay, that's because we haven't saved this screen, so it's not recognized yet. So let's do the same thing that we did for the main screen here. Import the material dot library, and we see that the error here has also gone away because we have the file saved now, and we can access it in here. So if then we come to the main.dat and we also import these two files here, we see that the difference between this import and this one is just the package. So the package that we're getting the material.dat file is the material.dat library is inside of the Flutter package, but our main screen and our subscreen, they're coming from the test app, which is the name that we've given to this, our application here. If I were to change this to you're going to see that would get different errors because our app is no longer test app, but we updated it. So in the case where you want to change the name of your application and the name of the package, which is our application, you just go to your prospect.yaml and then you update the package name right here. Okay, I just thought to run through that. I'm not sure why, but yeah, I hope that was a good additional info. Okay, so we have, oh yeah, so we just restart the app. An application is going to function in the exact same way. The only difference here is that we moved our files to the different files. We moved our widgets rather to different files, but it's still going to behave in the exact same way, just to help us have, shorter lines of code in each file. You see here now we have 23 lines. Well, technically we have less than that, but it's way different from having 100 plus lines. Here you at least know that this is where your application is starting from. And here okay, this file belongs just to the main screen. So if we're making any changes, we're making it inside of this file. And here we know that this file belongs to the subscreen and we can make changes as well. So it's just for proper code organization. It's really helpful, especially when you're trying to debug your code. Okay, so we have 9 more minutes. So it means we have to take assets and images to another class. But here, I think we've covered quite a number of things. So those on the call, do you guys have any questions from what we just talked about? Is that a question?
Hello.
Sorry, if you're asking a your audio isn't clear, so I can't really get what you're saying.
Okay, just
Maybe you could leave it as a chat and I would read it out.
I'm gonna drop the
Oops. Sorry, please unmute. I mistakenly muted you.
I thought I actually dropped the chat. So,
Yeah,
I've been watching. I don't know if you can hear me clearly now.
no, it's still the same thing. Let me go through the chat and
Okay,
see
let
the.
me just, I think my audio fix. I'm using
Okay, so help us fix your audio.
Is it better now?
Okay, just ask your question. Let me see if I'll be able to get it.
Okay, I was looking at what you have been doing. Then when you wanted to handle the click event, the tap event for the button, the is it what is this? That gesture something you used. Could you pass the button with the container widget as a child to the untap event that you implemented for the button?
I can barely hear you. Please just ask the question in the chat so that we can quickly cover it in before our time runs out. But I can barely hear you. I'm sorry. Please just type it as a chat so that I can quickly answer before the call ends. All right. Is there anyone else who has a question from all that we have covered today? Okay, so I'm just going to take silence as that everything was clear.
Sorry, I have a question. Good
Awesome.
afternoon. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to ask about what about name routes? Like when I was reading through like certain like documents or articles, and then your
Uh-huh.
method of using routes, like the way you did this, where you said the context and then the main screen.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was the concept they used when they wanted to like use named routes. So what was like the difference between the named routes and then using navigator dot push like you did here?
The difference is just with the name, really. So this our route here takes in a string. This is a string in which you can access the route that it's associated with. Hence, so say for example, now in our main screen, we can replace.
Yeah, and this is that was what I was trying to wait. Sorry. The code
Yeah.
you wrote before, like why are we saying constant subscreen if we've already like represented subscreen with didn't we represent it with like a slash?
So there's a
Yeah.
difference between named routes and using the material page route. Named routes, you get to use the string that you have associated with this widget. I was just about to show you an example now. So we could
Okay.
replace all these with
Push named.
and in this case, we're just going to pass in the string that we assign to the route here.
Yeah, okay.
And then if I were to run the code, it's going to be the same thing.
Oh. So wait, why can't we like is it because like we're using a stateless widget? That's why we named those routes. Because I feel like if we're using a stateful widget and we are just said navigator dot push material page route, this subscreen. That is the subscreen class that we created before. I feel like it will still do the same thing without the route. So is it because we're using a stateless widget? That's why we have to declare routes, like you are using routes. This the way you did it, like that map of like a map or something like that. Yeah, is it because we're using a stateless widget? That's why we did this.
No.
Because I've tried, I feel like if you use a stateful widget and then we still use navigator dot of context, let's say in an untapped function, and then we pass in the screen that we want to navigate to, it will still work.
Really, I'm
Like
not.
without using this route, this method.
Okay, let's try it out. I haven't tested it before. Let's see.
So I was thinking maybe it was because you used the stateless widget. That's why you went through. That's why you used this particular method.
Oh no, I'm just not aware of friends for the stateless and stateful. Like for the best of my knowledge, when using this what's it called? This when manually imputing your routes like this, like in the case where you're not using auto route, I have always just had it in my head perhaps you get to declare your routes first. Let's try. Let me change this to script form. And
just like a navigator to push to
yeah,
the
I'll change
screen.
that first. There's no need that change that to script form. Let's just restart it for the culture. Ooh, that's very interesting. That's actually very interesting.
So, but will it work with the stateful widgets? What you just did? I'm not sure. I don't think so.
This is
Because that one
stateful.
doesn't come with the. Oh, I mean with a stateless widget, because that doesn't come with like the context. Doesn't come with like the build context and everything.
Yeah,
The
I
stateless
know
widget.
stateless. It's expected to throw that error. Oh, it didn't. Oh, wow. Okay. So it means the whole routes bit isn't necessary. Is it not? Well, just to be on the safe side, it's best to somewhat declare the routes of all your widgets that you intend to navigate to. For the longest time, like for the longest time that I am aware of, you're expected to somewhat declare your routes somehow. Either you declare it inside of your material app like so, or you use auto routes and then you keep adding up whatever widgets that you intend to navigate to the place. So like that's what I've known for a really long time. And if that has changed, or if that has been updated, or if I just had like teeny weeny knowledge of that, then fine. But just to be on the safe side, it's best you just somewhat declare all of your routes so that you would not have, I mean, in case your code wants to touch. It's best to just declare your routes safely and then navigate to it.
Okay. But the only instance I've seen this being used is when they like you want to use named routes. So that's why I was like confused.
Oh yeah. Named routes, definitely you have to declare them. I actually had no I actually didn't know for sure that you could push without having to declare routes. So thank you for helping me to be aware of that. Grateful for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Felix, you didn't ask your question again. I've been checking the chats, waiting for you to post. Now we're about a minute past our or a minute past. Let me try your audio again and see.
I was actually looking at the container widget for the button.
Still the same. Maybe you could try speak up more, like just increase your voice a little.
I was just talking about the button.
Okay.
I was just looking at the texture method that you called. I was like, you pass the button container as a child to it.
Said if it's part of what?
If you pass the button container as a child to that gesture detector.
There's actually in the case where you're using a gesture detector, or in the case where you're building your button from scratch, if you're going to use a, I don't know if you said a button widget, but in the case where you want to use a button widget, you do not need the gesture detector. There's no need to pass in the button as a child to the gesture detector, because this already has its own function of trying to, detect a gesture, like a click or a tap or swiping or something. So in the case where you actually use a widget that's a button, there's no point wrapping it in a gesture detector. You could just use that. Or in the case where you want to build a button from scratch, say maybe there are some custom styles that you want to add to your button, you could just use a gesture detector. I use a gesture detector in this class just to show that there are other ways in which you can create a button, but to like very swiftly, you could use one of the button widgets that are available to you to create your button at any time.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's all that we're going to cover today. Tomorrow, since the task expires tomorrow, I would try to find a design that I can use to what's it called, to build a contacts app as the task required of you guys. So I'll find a design that matches the requirements, and then we'll just build it live in the class. Hope that's fine. Yeah, so that way we're going to also cover assets, images, and we could also cover fonts as well.
So also, I wanted to ask, I had a challenge with the task, the contact app, trying to upload. So I don't know if there's an
Trying to upload
alternative
what?
to that. To upload it on the, what's that platform? The platform that the assignment said we should upload on. So the
I already sent some info on the in the Slack channel that Appetizer.io Appetizer.io takes in just your debug APK to work. So if you build a release APK, or if you split ABI, Appetizer is not going to accept that. You need to use debug APK to load successfully on Appetizer and then run your app. Debug APK is accessible to you like the moment you run your application on a device. The moment you run your application, you automatically have access to the debug APK. So you just go under your build folder under Android and the build folder, and you should be able to access the debug APK and run up. So only the debug APK. That's sorry about that. So only your debug APK, that's what Appetizer accepts. So maybe try that. If it still doesn't work, you could ask your question again, or you could show what error you're getting on Slack. All right, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining today's session. I'm most grateful for all of you that asked a question. And also thank you to you for helping me to realize that new fact on navigators. That said, thank you all so much for joining. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a really enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.